This webinar is for information purposes only. It is not intended to be legal advice. We do not supply legal advice. If you require legal advice, please contact a qualified legal professional. All information in this webinar is private. All results can be different, and your actions or results are your own responsibility. We cannot be held responsible for other people's actions and or results.
They've done to us, because this, right, everybody calls it a matrix, and it is a matrix. It truly is a matrix, right? Now, if we take it back to Boniface VIII, I think it was, when he created the first ever trust, and it was not only the first trust, but it was the largest trust in known on earth, the Unum Sanctum, where basically it was like one holy church. This is what he stated. Now, he called it, or everyone else called it, the dead earth hologram, because it just made everything false. So nobody in the entire world owned anything. It all belonged to the church or to him, basically. Nice guy. All right. So that was like the first ever like trust that was to actually take everybody's property off them. All right. And this is what we're still living with now. This is what this is. This is why everything that we're doing, or everything we're trying to go through, that they've set up for us is a fiction. It's all a lie. All right. So I know that we've talked about like the Cestui Que Vie trust, and how we actually, the trusts, the first trust on the Unum Sanctum in 1302 by Boniface, that was just the start of it. That wasn't even a Cestui Que Vie trust. Okay, that was a completely different trust altogether. All right, I can't remember that. I think it was called a testamentary trust. But the first Cestui Que Vie trust, that was done in 1455, again by another pope. All right, called the Romanus Pontifex. Okay, this is all the way back there. These are the same people, right? The same families that have been running this. You couldn't get to be a pope unless you were part of the Venetian black nobility, right? You were a bloodline of the black nobility, or you weren't getting anywhere in the world, and that's a fact, and it still is, right? We need to find out, like now, like I say, it was Pope Nicholas V, and he was the one that did the Romanus Pontifex. Now that was the first crown. There's 3 crowns, all right? Now, what are we fighting? We're fighting the Crown Corporation. The first crown, right, that was in 1455 by Nicholas V. That was called the Crown of the Land. That was when they actually claimed all of the land, the same as what Boniface did with the 1302 Unum Sanctum, all right? But that was like another testamentary trust through a deed. And basically, that was the first Cestui Que Vie trust. And that there basically deprived anybody through birth, deprived you of the land or any benefits from the land. So that was taking all the land off of the people, off of us through birth. Okay. Then the second Cestui Que Vie trust, that as well, that's when they first started using the term for a perpetual remembrance. For a perpetual remembrance, that means it never goes away. All right. So I've spoken about this before, but if there's one guy that you'll see, I've seen a few photographs of him, and I've seen on a news shot of him years ago, and he is called the remembrancer, because he's in charge of the perpetual remembrance. Now, that is the only person ever that is allowed to sit in the House of Lords and the House of Commons and in with the Queen. The same guy. And he wears this big red flowing gown. He's got one of them stupid wigs, right? Like, it looks like an old-fashioned judge. And he's called the remembrancer. And he's in charge of the perpetual remembrance. Okay? So, the next one, right, in 1481, which is called the Eternae Regis, right? That's the crown of the Commonwealth, which was given to Spain initially. That was the second Cestui Que Vie trust. So the first one, that took all the land off everybody through our birth. This one, the second one, it actually claimed your body, right? So the second one claimed your body through birth. It's terrible being born. All right. So on there, basically, you were now a Roman person. A Roman person. That is what it actually explains it as. So if we look at all of these acts of parliament, any statute legislation, it all belongs to a person. Okay, a person. And then if we take it even further back into ancient Greek, a person, what is a person? A person is someone who wears a mask wearer. That's what the word person means in ancient Greek. Now that there, okay, the second Cestui Que Vie trust, which was called the body crown, that made all of us Roman person or Roman slave to the Vatican. Okay, so the third one, which was the convocation crown, that is the one that took your soul. All right, that was in 1537 on the third Cestui Que Vie trust, and that was taken by baptism. So I myself got baptized. That was by Pope Paul III. So he set it up there. So I had on the third Cestui Que Vie trust, the first one they took the land, the second one that they took your body, and on the third one they took your soul. So they took the whole lot. Now it does state, I read it somewhere, that the setter, it was either in Greek or Latin, ancient Latin or ancient Greek, stands for 6. I'm sure I had read that on there. And also when I was listening to another one, I can't remember who it was now, and they were saying it stands for 6. And there's the 3 Cestui Que Vie trusts, 6, 6, 6, which can be a good number as well. It depends on what you want to do. Reverse it around. It's not for us to actually say what it is now. But what I do want you to pay attention to is the last one, right? Which is the one that they really said they were claiming all of the souls that were lost at sea. Okay. So they were claiming them for the Holy See, as in SEE. But what they were saying is when they were lost at sea, it was SEA. But right, what we need to know is how it's come about and why it's came to England and to Europe, and it's all through the same family, right? This is going back to biblical times. I know a lot of these might already know it, right? So you had the 3 crowns, which was the 3 Cestui Que Vie trusts. But that is not the Cestui Que Vie Act. Now, everybody says the Cestui Que Vie Act of 1666. Most people have known that. But the first Cestui Que Vie Act in England, right, was in 1540. All right, so it wasn't 1666, it was 1540. And that was by Henry VIII. Okay, so what they did was the third crown, the convocation, right? Now, Henry VIII got assisted to take that third crown from the Vatican, right, by the Venetians. Right, now you must have heard me talk about the Venetians before, right? The Venetians actually set it up so that they could give Henry VIII the third crown, the convocation crown, which is the souls. So what happened was he split. You'll know that he split from the Roman Empire. You'll know that he split from the Pope. So then he was given the ecclesiastical power by the Venetians. We've got to remember, the Venetians are the one that creates the popes. Without the Venetians, there is no Pope, right? But they actually give the third crown and the ecclesiastical power to Henry VIII. So now he could take all of the souls and hold them for eternity. All right. Now, still now, all of them baptism certificates, right the way back, are all still kept in the Vatican. So Henry VIII, he was basically he was leader basically of the Vatican, even though he was saying he was split from Rome. So what he did when he split from Rome, he actually took all of the land for himself, as in the popes had said that it would belong to the church. He said now he was the leader of the church. He had the ecclesiastical power. So he closed down all of the churches in England, which you got, if you want to think about it on our terms today, you'd have Roman Catholics and Protestants. All right. But then there was only one church. It was the Roman church in England. So what he did is he closed them all and he took everything. So he took all of the wealth and he took all of the land. And these were the wealthiest people in the whole of the world, was all of the church people. And he took it all. So he used Thomas Cromwell, right? Now, Thomas Cromwell, not Oliver Cromwell from the Roundheads and the Civil War. Thomas Cromwell, he used him and he actually stripped all of the land, land from the churches and all of the wealth. And he was in charge of taking everything. He was an extremely powerful person. Thomas Cromwell was probably the second most important person in England below the king, right? And the only reason why he fell out of favor with the king, I can't remember her name now, it was one of his last wives, who apparently was an ugly person, right? And because Thomas Cromwell actually arranged the marriage, Henry cut his head off. So, but anyway, that's got nothing to do with there. But that is how this has been set up. And this is all to do, right, with the Cestui Que Vie trusts, okay? So what he done as well is he murdered, not that I care, but he murdered like thousands upon thousands of priests and just took everything for himself, which is why the crown still owns everything now. Obviously, Thomas Cromwell, when he assisted in what was called like the Reformation of England, going back to where the crown came from, and this is where it really came in. This has been played on all the way through by these Venetians. Okay, so the crown itself, right, the convocation crown, which was the third crown for the souls, England lost it in 1816 because they were deliberately made bankrupt by the Venetians. So they got Henry VIII the crown, knowing down the line, and they've been planning this for like thousands of years. What they're doing is they do this and they do this and they do this all the time. All right. Then in 1816, they lost the crown. The crown, and this is the crazy part, right? The crown was awarded to the Temple Bar in London. So now the Crown Corporation is the Temple Bar in London. Okay. The Temple Bar, and it's the City of London. So, you know, the City of London is actually a country, a state on its own inside of England, inside of London. That square mile, right? That is the same as when you go to the Vatican, it's its own country. You go to Washington, D.C., it's its own country. That square mile, look, the City of London, and it has the crown, right? The third crown, and it still has it to today, the convocation crown. And that's, so they are now entitled to like take all of our souls. Now the bar, the English bar, okay, which is like the British accredited registry, and it doesn't matter what kind of solicitor it is, or if it's a barrister, like the attorneys or whatever they are in the United States, if they are in the bar, then they are registered British. Doesn't matter where they are in the world, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America, if they are an attorney under the bar, if they've been accepted onto the bar, they are an esquire, right, in Britain. That's what their title is. Okay, so they still now, in the Crown Corporation in London, that is, the Crown Corporation is called the Crown Corporation, but it's not incorporated. Right? You know, if you open up a limited company, you incorporate yourself. Okay, so you set up a limited company and you'll be the director. The Crown Corporation is not limited. It's not registered on what do you call it, on Company's House in London, because it's private. Okay, it's completely private. So it was Henry VIII. Now, he did like the first Cestui Que Vie Act, not the trust, the first Cestui Que Vie Act in 1540, aided by the Venetians, right? The Venetians are the Phoenicians, from Phoenicia. So we actually still, it's the language that we are speaking. It's not English. It's a lot of it is like Phoenician words, and it's all a play on language. Okay. So if you look at even the word language, and it starts off, break it down. The first part, lan, right? That word lan, right? It's actually coming from Oriental mythology, and it means a monster that protects the noble ones. So the first part of language, lan, it's a monster that protects the noble ones. Okay. Now the middle of it is gu, lan gu, right? Gu is a god of war. That's from, it's an African deity, right? So you've got lan, a monster that protects the noble ones. Gu is the god of war. And age, the last part, age, okay, it can either be ages through the years or the ages of the zodiac. So the word language, right, what it breaks down to is a monster of war that protects the noble ones throughout the ages. So they're using language to actually disguise themselves, basically, is what that's saying. So when you say the actual word, as in W-O-R-D, right, in ancient Greek, the word is logos. Logos. So all corporations have a logo. All right, this is all tied together with the language coming from the Phoenicians. Okay, so all corporations, what are they? It's a corpse oration, which is what they make you, a dead entity. So corpse is dead, ration or ration, right, is the sharing it out. So on a corporation, what they're doing is they're sharing out the dead. They're sharing out the souls between them. That is what they're doing. So on the words, right, and if you move the S or over on the other side, it becomes a sword. We was talking about drawing out the sword before when we're striking off the bill, all right, when we do the accept for value, but use it on the gyro slip. Okay. So now, since 1816, we've had that Crown Corporation that's made in the City of London. Okay. So we got to remember, right, that it's unincorporated. It makes it private. It's not a public limited company, and it's not a limited company. It's a private company. Okay. So when we ever talk about the crown, a lot of people say, oh, the Queen owns it. The Queen, it's nothing to do with the Queen's crown. It's, they used to call it the Temple Crown, and now it's just gone down just the Crown or the Crown Corporation. Okay. All right. So this as well, we've got to remember the Crown Corporation is the Temple Bar, and the bar is the court. He swears allegiance to the crown. So he has to make sure the crown get paid. That's why they all wear black. The judges wear black. The barristers, they all wear black, because they are representing the dead, because they've took all the souls. The Crown Corporation are in charge of keeping all the souls and claiming all the dead. We're all the dead at sea. So I just want everyone to know how big this is, how huge a lie this is. So it isn't about like, you know, I want to go and talk to Peter, because the actual corruption and the disgusting mess that this all is created is all going back all these years, and it all comes from the Phoenicians, right? Which are now the Venetians, and they're still in Venice. Okay. All right. And the reason why, whoa, so it was the Venetians that aided him, right? They've been behind everything all the time. Okay. And they still run everything now under, what do they run it under? Admiralty maritime law, right? They believe in their eyes that they're on a ship. They're in Venice, right? They believe it's a ship. They're not on land. Okay, so they run it all on Admiralty law. Now, the reason why they want to be on a ship, they don't want to be on land, right, is because the Venetians, right, were the Phoenicians, right, which were the Khazarians, which is going back to the Canaanites. All right. So the Canaanites, and I'm talking about biblical here, from Cain and Abel in the Bible, who were the sons of Adam and Eve, right? So the Canaanites were evil. So we know, well, hopefully, you know, Cain killed his brother Abel, but he didn't just kill Abel, right? He ate Abel, which is where we get the word Cain ate Abel, cannibal. All right. So then what happened was God banished him from the land. So he was never allowed to settle on land. So that's why they always traveled around. So you had the going, like I say, the moving, and they went into Middle Asia, and there were the Khazarians or Khazarians, however you want to pronounce it. And then from there going over to Phoenicia, which was around the Mediterranean, and they had an empire there. But on the Phoenicians, funnily enough, they never ever, they killed everybody, by the way, but they never ever did anything to the Israelites because they were related, and they used to intermarry all the time. All right, because that was still their bloodline. Now, when they were the Khazarians, they actually got invaded by. It wasn't Russia. It was, but it was Russia, if you know what I mean. But not what we think of it now, right? And he actually, because there was such a hideous blood cult, which is coming back from the Canaanites, right? That they were still sacrificing children, okay, and they were like killing the children, eating the children, drinking the blood, all right, which is like going to adrenochrome, right? This is where it's all coming from, right? All leading, right, to what we are now. So they've went from the Canaanites to Khazarians to the Phoenicians to the Venetians, and then it's the Venetians that have set up the Crown Corporation, and through the Venetians rule the world through the Crown Corporation. And the Crown Corporation are in three: London City, the Vatican, and Washington, D.C. Right? So on the Crown Corporation, where it is right now, like in the City of London, and it's all ruled out that way, which is where all and what they've done is they've actually completely bankrupted the entire nation, and then they've went on to the next one and the next one and the next one, till everything now is completely bankrupt, and all of the central banks run everything, which is why we're in this situation. All right, so a long-winded way, but I wanted like everyone to be at least on the same sort of like level of knowing that we're not just going, I don't want to pay my council tax anymore, which is a noble thing, right? But it's a big battle that we're in because of what they've done to us, and they've done it for thousands of years. This reset that they're trying to push through now, they've done this loads of times. If you see some of the photographs and some of the film footage, right, you see these, and it's showing you these amazing buildings, and they're trying to say, and there's no people around them, right? And I'm talking about the old photographs, because basically they've been getting rid of populations all the time. I mean, World War I and World War II, it was just to kill people, right? They didn't need to do that war. There was no reason for it, right? It's got nothing to do with money or power, because they own everything. It's just like, we need rid of more people. Go kill them. It's why you've got, dickheads like him who's just bloody died, that prince, whatever he was, Philip, and then his son. And they still say the same thing. We need to like control the population. We need to like population control. What does that mean? It means they want to kill people. That's what it means. So anyway, right? So as I was telling you, the reason why they're on Venice was because they think that they can't be held accountable if they kept themselves at sea, which is why they run it under Admiralty law. If they're not on land, they're at sea because they're in Venice. So that's why they stay there. They think that they're not breaking God's laws and that they can be protected on Venice. So their names, this is the names. This is the Venetian black nobility. These are the people that there's 13 families that run the entire planet. Okay. Farnese, Somaglia, Este, Conti, Chigi, Breakspear, Orsini, which are the head, Medici, which has been a lot of popes called Medici, Borgia, a lot of popes called Borgia or from that family, Gattani, Palafresiniti, Borghese, and Aldo Brandini. Okay, now that's the 13 bloodlines, all right, the real rulers of the world. Now, I've seen other people like come up with names that are like, saying the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. Now, they are extremely powerful people, but they are just running the banks. They were put there, right? I will put a list. That family, they was ones that set up the first Cestui Que Vie Act in 1540 in England with Henry VIII. And then it was redone again by Charles II, I do think it was. And that's the 1666 one. That's the one that everybody knows. Now, again, the 1666, right? That was a reset as well. Okay. So in 1666, they had the Great Plague, right? And it was going right the way through England. So everybody was wearing masks. They all had a social distance, and they were all getting isolated in the homes if they had anything. Does that ring a bell? This was 1666, right? So what they did at the same time, they had the Great Fire of London, which wiped out like thousands of people. And they blamed a guy who we called Thomas Faino. I'll say his name, Faino, something like that. Thomas Faino. And they said he was a baker in Pudding Lane, and it was his fault. You know, they burnt the whole place down so they could get rid of people. And at the same time as well, they set the place on fire, and everybody was trying to actually like put the fire out and look after everything. That's when they did the second, or the updated Cestui Que Vie Act of 1666. Now, it's still in force today. You can go on to gov. Or whatever it is, gov. What is it? Whatever it's called, and the UK government website, and it's still on there. And that still declares that everybody, right, is lost at sea. Now, part of the L&D, that when we send this off, and it's saying it's to prove life to them, prove that we are not dead at sea. But also, right, if you look at it and you think about the Venetians with Henry VIII, he changed it, right? So he was saying, prove that you are not lost at sea, S-E-E, as in the Holy See. So not only did you have to prove you were alive, you had to prove you weren't a Catholic. Okay, and that would give you what they called equity. So when we're talking about equity, we're talking about remedy. All right, this is where you would go to Chancery Court. So agency's chasing you, but actually it's not, you know, it's good fun. So what you have to do is you have to get rid of the fear and not be bothered about like what anybody else thinks, or because it's just a job, and to them it's just a game, and none of this money is real, right? It's monopoly money. All it says on there is I promise to pay. It doesn't say that this has got £20 value, right? It says I promise to pay at some time in the future. So you've got to play at their game, okay? Which is